Forgot my water. Gotta get a drink. Okay. All right. It is, believe it or not, that time of the year where we need to plan for holidays. We're going to talk today about Thanksgiving, and I'm going to share some tips and tricks and also kind of my planning method for keeping things running smoothly so you can focus on the most important part, which is the people you're celebrating with. Even if it's just yourself, you don't need to have added stress. So let's talk. There's a lot that goes into Thanksgiving with cooking, preparing, maybe decorating. You could be hosting, you could be needing to take something to someone. The focus for me today is just going to be mainly if you were like hosting or doing most of the cooking yourself. I am going to hopefully be able to include the document I created that I use, and I will show a screenshot of that as well, so you can kind of see how I did it. I want it to be adaptable for you guys to use in the way that would make the most sense for you. So let's start with our tips. Ready? If you're doing a turkey, if at all possible, try to do a small young turkey. There's some debate whether it's more tender. I personally, from my experience, feel like it is, but there's also a benefit to doing a smaller turkey than you maybe used to do. I used to do a giant like 20-pound turkey or 16, 18-pound turkey because we had a lot of people. And it's nice to have leftovers, but I realized that getting a smaller turkey meant that I can scooch it over and bake something else in there, which is really important. I don't have double ovens or a giant commercial kitchen. I'm sure many of you don't. Some of you might not even have an oven or, things like that. So you want to make sure you're just getting what you need with a little leftover. You could always get 2 turkeys too. If you were thinking you wanted leftovers, you could cook it that same day while everybody's eating, or you could cook it a different day, down the road, keep it in your freezer if you have freezer space. So small young turkey is one of my tips. Buying a second turkey is another tip, not just for Thanksgiving Day, but the cost for turkey, even if you account for the fact that, you don't eat the bones. So the weight per pound, even if you account for that, it is still probably one of the cheapest meats you can buy. So I usually, if I can make the space in the freezer, buy a second turkey. I don't even necessarily cook it right then. I wait until things die down after the holidays, and then I cook it up because cheap meat. And then you can freeze it. You can make it into other things. You can save the broth for soups. So buy a small turkey if at all possible, and buy a second turkey if you have the space. Prepping ahead of time. That is a big tip. Now, some of it kind of seems obvious, but I'm talking like I do a lot of prepping ahead of time. Not too far ahead of time, because obviously things spoil and you can't keep certain things, but some things can be frozen. Some things could be, parts of it could be made well in advance. I'll talk a little more I'll talk a little bit more about that when I show my planning document that I use, because it shows in there when I'm like how far ahead I'm prepping some of the things. But prepping ahead of time saves you a lot of time. Anything you can make the day or a couple days before is nice if it's something you can freeze, because then you can focus on the things you have to do that day. Like probably the turkey and the mashed potatoes are going to be best if you do them that day. It also leaves you more time to socialize, relax, and enjoy the time. I started probably a year or 2 ago on my schedule plan for when I'm cooking things and stuff like that. I finally put in a time slot for me to get ready, because usually I'm getting up early to put the turkey in, and then, doing different things. Sometimes my mom will come over early and visit and help and things like that. But it would then get to like, the rolls are in the oven. We're just about ready to sit down and eat. And I'm like, oh, I'm just like wearing a sloppy apron and my hair's all over the place. So if you care about your appearance, or if you're doing family photos or something like that, make sure that you schedule in time for you to get ready. Kind of along those lines is also, if you can do it ahead of time, great. We had kids and it just wasn't feasible, but plan your decor if you want to decorate, what you're going to use. I don't go buy new stuff, but maybe you want to buy a few new things, or maybe you store them in a less convenient place. make sure that you plan ahead, get the decorations and tablecloths and things like that ready. If possible, you could even do that like ahead of time. I couldn't, so I just added it to my schedule of things I was doing on Thanksgiving Day because I couldn't do it ahead of time. But planning it and scheduling it makes it more smooth and gives you time to think about, oh, that's right, I have a couple candlesticks in my room. That would look cute. Or my neighbor had a basket of pine cones from their tree they're getting rid of. Like, maybe I'll grab that and make it cute. Or maybe you have kids or family members and you want to do some kind of decorative craft with them to then display. It also is a time you could do, if you do like, some people do like gratitude leaves, or we did gratitude rolls for a long time. Something like that, you can kind of gather it and prep it instead of, frantically trying to do it before you sit down. Since we're talking about, prepping, plan a snack for yourself. Now, I don't know when you eat. Everybody eats at different times for their Thanksgiving feast. Ours was typically around lunchtime. So when the kids were little, obviously, then, I'd have some kind of breakfast for them. But a lot of times I wouldn't think about it. I'd be focused on prepping the food, getting it ready, and like forget to eat myself. So a couple years ago, since my mom doesn't live here and she travels over, and I don't want her to bring a ton of food, I just started having her bring a little cheese log and crackers, so that like when she got there a couple hours before we're gonna eat, we had a snack and chatted, and it was kind of a fun tradition almost, but also was a good way for me to not go too long without eating something and getting kind of dingy. It's also nice if you do have family that's either staying over or, younger kids, maybe people you don't want in the kitchen, having some kind of snack plan so that you can have that in place. Just put the snack out, you get something to eat, they get something to eat, you can focus on cooking or visiting or whatever you want to do. One of the things I do well in advance, I have done my pies well in advance and frozen them, but often I don't, I do them a day or two before. But one thing I do usually do well in advance, because it saves me time and energy, is I freeze bread scraps. A few years ago, I don't know what was going on, but I typically would buy like the dried bread pieces from the store. I could not find them anywhere. I went everywhere and there was no bread scraps anywhere. And I mean, I try not to waste food, but still there'll be a time where I buy like a loaf of French bread and then the kids were busy or we didn't end up eating the meal that I thought, and I have like half of this loaf. So, and it doesn't always have to be French bread. Sometimes it's different breads, whatever breads you eat. I started slicing it and dicing it, putting it in a bag, and then I'll just add to the bag anytime I had like scrap bread. I don't typically use sandwich bread. I find it's too sweet, but if you don't mind that flavor. So that's what I do well ahead of time for my stuffing, because then I get it out and prep it. I'll go over that when I talk about the stages of what I do. But then I have it ready to go and I don't have to go finding it anywhere. It also is repurposing something that I might have thrown out. So that's my stuffing tip. I came across a new mashed potato rule with some tips, which I'm going to try and find the original source and link the little graphic, because I think it was cute. But if not, I'll just mention it later because I need to look up and make sure I get it right. But something about like cold butter and stuff like that, which I've never thought about. So I'm going to try it this year, and I'll try to do a little like update on Instagram or something if it seems to make a difference. But not everyone is a cook. Not everyone wants to host. Not everyone even wants to bring something. But if you get asked to do that and you're a little bit stressed, there's some things you can do. I say cut corners where it won't matter, okay? So an example of that would be to maybe buy a pre-made pie crust if you don't have time or energy or know how to make a pie crust, and then you just do the filling yourself so that it tastes homemade, but you're not doing all that. I actually make rolls from scratch, and I've made them for years, and they're pretty good. But a few years ago, I realized like how much stress that was adding to my Thanksgiving. So I talked to my kids, and although they love my homemade rolls and they love homemade things that I make, especially like on a different day, they would enjoy it. But for Thanksgiving, there's so much food. They said they didn't care, and they actually like those Rhodes rolls. So I buy Rhodes rolls now. That's a way that I cut a corner that doesn't matter, because it wasn't anyone's, like nobody was going to die if I didn't make the homemade rolls that year. And it left me time to focus on the things that they really enjoyed. And actually they like Rhodes rolls, so that worked out good. If your family isn't a huge turkey eater, but you're going to have a turkey, you could buy those like turkey breast meat. They have packs of. Then you don't have to focus on making a whole turkey, which might seem daunting. You could focus on, the desserts or whatever thing that you love to make or want to work on improving. Sometimes it is cheaper. Sometimes it's just worth it because it saves your sanity. Same with your sides. Maybe you buy a pre-made side or buy like partially pre-made ingredients and turn it into a side so that you can focus on the turkey. Just depends on what you want, but you don't have to make 15 different sides. You don't have to make a bunch of desserts. We have 2 desserts. That's it. Not that we don't love dessert. I love dessert. As you know, like if you look at my channel, like a bunch of dessert videos, but it's partly because we would cut down to 1, but my husband and his daughters love pumpkin pie. My kids and I don't like pumpkin pie. So I make pumpkin pie for them and I make pumpkin bars for the rest of us. And that is nice because it just simplifies. 2 desserts. I can handle that. So be thinking about that. Like the green bean casserole with the crunchy onions. I actually enjoy that. And there's some family members that do, but it's nobody's real favorite. And it was just another thing that I had to try and assemble and get in the oven and things like that. So sometimes you can cut back on those to focus on the things that people really do care about, which really it's supposed to be about family and celebrating and focusing on that. I've referenced it a few times, but my tip would be to make a schedule, like a time schedule. Like obviously it's not going to be specific. Maybe your turkey takes a little longer sometimes certain years, but if you have a general outline schedule of what time each thing needs to go in or be done, that is so much less stress. I didn't do that for many years and I did it more recently. And it's going to tie into my next tip, which is save notes each year. So maybe one year you buy a different brand of turkey and you're like, wow, that was an amazing turkey. Put a note in like a Google Doc or some other form so that the next year when you get ready to plan for Thanksgiving, you're like, what was that brand of turkey that we bought? You could open it up, you can purchase that same brand. Or something doesn't go well and you could say, don't try to make this and this at the same time, or don't use this ingredient, or so-and-so hates onions or whatever. So having a schedule where you know what you're doing at each time on Thanksgiving and even the days before when you have to prep, and also saving notes for yourself makes a big difference. It has gone so much more smoothly for me since I started doing those. So that's what I'm going to show. I'm going to try and screen capture, hopefully explain a few more things, but I really want you to have a great Thanksgiving, focus on what really matters. And if it's a difficult time for you, try to find someone you can share it with. Maybe you have a neighbor or another friend or someone in your community or church that also is struggling. Maybe go do a service. Let's say you're on your own and it's kind of getting you down. Maybe see if there's a local organization you can support. It is really tough time of year for a lot of people, and I hope that you could find a way to find joy. Hope that this helps if you are hosting. So let's go to my screen so that I can show you in more detail the things I was explaining about scheduling time and planning. And hopefully I can get this document shareable and editable. I haven't done that before, so fingers crossed that works, and fingers crossed that it's something that is useful to you. Please feel free to comment. I really do want to have a community where people can share and help each other, because there's probably a ton of tips you guys have that would help me have a better Thanksgiving. Or a comment may not apply to me, but it might help someone else in the comments. Like I really want to get comments going with people helping each other and just having more joy in life. So let's go to the screenshot. Here we are in my screen. As you can see, I have listed that it's for 12 people. This year it won't be, but I'm just going to go over what I typically do. So a few years ago, I started this, this grid chart that I made. And I think only last year or the year before I started doing, over here in this column, you can see I've got actual time slots for Thanksgiving Day itself. Let me show you the columns. Okay, so here I have on the left food, which is which food item I'm talking about. Then prep ahead is the column for anything I'm doing not on Thanksgiving Day. Sometimes it's way out, sometimes it's not. I don't have that many things I do way far in advance. Then I have the column for Thanksgiving Day with our plan to eat at noon. So all of these times work for if we're eating at noon. And obviously sometimes things come up and it doesn't quite work out that way. But then the far column is if I'm hosting and people are coming. I have who's responsible because sometimes I'm not, but I need to remember that I'm not. So that's the columns, and then I'm going to go through each thing really briefly because, you know, everybody does things differently, but I want to just kind of show. So I switched a few years ago to a Butterball young turkey. My dad had always bought a Butterball, but over the years I couldn't really afford to buy that. I tried to go cheaper, and they were fine. There was nothing wrong with the cheaper brands, but I think 2 years ago I switched back to Butterball and was very happy, and I switched to young turkey at the same time, and it just seemed to be juicier. As you can see, I put 5 days for a 14 to 16 pound turkey. I don't think my turkey's that big this year because we're going to be a smaller group, so I won't need quite that many days. And obviously it depends. That's for thawing in the fridge. So I put that so that when it gets close to Thanksgiving, I can go into my calendar, set a reminder to get the turkey out and put it in the fridge in a big bin and thaw it out. And then on Thanksgiving Day, I have the details of what I'm doing with the turkey. You know, when I'm getting it out of the packaging, how long it takes to cook, when we should start carving. I even accounted for 30 minutes for it to sit in its juices and stuff. And then if we're going to eat at noon, we want to start carving by 11:30. My husband thankfully does that, but I've done it in the past. But that way it gives you time to, like, you know, it's pretty hot. So, you know, you want to have time to get it carved and on the plate and ready for everybody. Depends. Okay, then I have a layered salad that I make. So I'm just going to go over this even if you don't make it. I do this the day before because I don't want to, on Thanksgiving, be trying to cook bacon, hard-boil eggs, make a salad dressing, slice and wash everything. There's no reason to do it Thanksgiving Day. I can do it all the day before. I do not assemble the salad until, as you can see, if I scooch over here, this is the next column where it's Thanksgiving. I layer it in the morning after I put the turkey in, because if I layered it before, in theory, it should be fine, but I feel like it goes a little soggy. So I prep all the pieces and then put them together on Thanksgiving Day. My glow up, that was what I was talking about earlier, where I scheduled time to get ready, but I did put that, like, a couple days before I decide what I'm going to wear and what I'm going to do with my hair, because I'm not high maintenance anyway, but I don't want to be sitting there trying to curl my hair in the middle of, you know, trying to do all the cooking and baking. And then I scheduled it on Thanksgiving Day for a certain time slot so that when I look on my schedule as I'm going along, oh, it's time to go get ready and, you know, do these things. I mentioned having a snack. I put that, if I'm making it, I put some details. This year, I don't even know if I will, because it's just gonna be 3 of us. Then paper products, I don't know if we'll use them this year since it's just a small group, but in the past, I would either get them or my mom or sister, so I would bring them. Stuffing, this is the part where it's weeks ahead of time, make your own cubes, all that. And then the day before, I get them out and I start to dry them out. I just let them sit out and dry, then bag them up once they're kind of dried out. I don't want them soggy because I don't like soggy stuffing. I do cook the sausage and some other things. I also, last year, I think, baked the whole thing and completed it because it was quicker on Thanksgiving Day if it was already made, and then I was just reheating it because I just get it out for 30 minutes and then bake it for 30 minutes. And even though that's still an hour, it's not an hour of needing the oven, and it's not an hour of me trying to figure out if it's done and all that. I already know it's done, and I'm just reheating it. So that, now this is the thing I'm going to try and find. Oh, it looks like it's ways to cook. There's an @ sign, so I'm going to try to find the original link, but I have not tried this. The next food is mashed potatoes. It says cold butter and milk sees the starch, which makes a gluey mashed potato, but warm butter and milk absorb smoothly and makes a creamy mashed potato. I also put garlic powder in mine, and salt and pepper. So I'm going to try this, and I'm going to try to link this. I just thought it was such a cute little picture. And I also want to try that tip. So I also put over here how many potatoes per person I figured on that is enough with a little left over, and how long it takes me total, because cooking the potatoes doesn't take a super long time. I think it's about 20 minutes or something. But if I include all the peeling and the cooking and then the adding the butter and all that, so I put a total time on that. Then the gravy, I just use a package mix, or sometimes the turkey will come with it. But this year I bought a bone broth kind because I tried the bone broth gravy and it was really good. And I will try to put a link to which brand if I like it. And I added a note on Thanksgiving Day to put the drippings with it because that just adds that, depth of flavor. Butternut, corn, any of your veggie sides, you don't really need to prep ahead of time because they wouldn't be as good a quality. Holiday punch or drinks, usually I just put a note on the day before to put them in the fridge because there's no reason to store them in the fridge and take up extra space, for weeks ahead of time. But I do want to remember to do it before Thanksgiving, although, you can put them over ice, but I have a note on that. And then the pies. I do make the pies on Wednesday usually. And as you can see, I've put some notes in here to make my life easier. Because last year and the year before, my pie crust was not as solid. That's not the word. It wasn't holding together as well as I would have liked. It was very flaky, but it wasn't holding together as well as I'd like. And so I think I just needed to knead it a little bit more. So I put a note to that. And then sometimes the edges will brown. So I have a note under there for that. To make sure that I cover them. So all of these things, as you learn, this is the thing. Let's say things don't turn out well. Yes, of course, that's a bummer, right? That Thanksgiving. But doesn't mean the next Thanksgiving has to be that way. You can put a note to yourself, to make sure you do something differently. Or if something works out good, make sure you make a note of it. My only note for that was to display it on I have a double-decker cake stand thing because that works nice. So pumpkin bars, that's my other dessert. Because I need my butter and cream cheese room temperature before I make them on Wednesday, I do have a note to get those things out on Tuesday night. And then first thing Wednesday morning, I make the pumpkin bars and get them all covered, frosted and covered. Fruit salad I don't make every year. Sometimes my mom makes it, sometimes we don't have it. This year it was requested by my son, and so I will be making it. And then Rhodes rolls, I sadly did not put a note last year. See, this is why I started this. I would think every year, Thanksgiving's a big event. I'm going to remember next year when I get to Thanksgiving that I want to do this or I don't want to do this. I am pretty sure last year that I put my Rhodes rolls in the pan and rose them overnight, but I didn't put a note. So this year, as I was thinking through my things to buy and do and whatever, I realized that. And so I put overnight rise ? Because I'm pretty sure I did that. Although it's always nice to have hot, fresh rolls, it's not that big a deal if they're not hot. And I could always just throw them in some foil to heat them up a little bit. So I think I will try the overnight rise again and bake them in the morning. That way they're out of the way. But I might just bake them the day before. We'll see. So those are all my notes. Those are my time schedules, as you can see. Some of the things don't have a time schedule because, like, if I'm making corn or something like that or gravy, it kind of depends on when I have time to squeeze that in. And then if I'm baking the rolls on that day, they're the very last thing I do at 11:30. So those things really help me. Having a time schedule, having who's responsible, having what things I need to prep ahead and when, notes to myself from previous years. All of those things just make it so that I can focus on talking to my family, having fun, and actually, they also make it so someone could help me even more. If I'm in the middle of doing something, I can ask whoever's helping me to just check the list, and they could say, oh, that's right, you said to cover the edges at the beginning. Things like that, it just makes it easier for everyone. Another fun thing that we did, we do it on Christmas, I think we've done on Thanksgiving too, is even though we're pretty much all adults, on a whim, I printed out some, actually I'm going to share this part face to face. I decided, even though we're all adults, to print out some holiday like Mad Libs. If you don't know what those are, you can look it up. It's just, you ask people for random words and then read a story or something with it. So I had printed some out. Everyone was laughing and having such a good time that I ended up printing a few more, which is nice because not everybody can fit in my kitchen and I want everybody to be having fun. But it's also, I found that with the Mad Libs or something similar, there's other things you could do. it gave an opportunity for me to participate, even though I'm in the kitchen cooking, and still have fun and join in and laugh and, you know, just stuff like that. So I ended up surprising my sister, because she was the one kind of running it and entering all the things, by buying a holiday Mad Libs, specifically like a booklet for Christmas. Because yeah, it must have been Thanksgiving we did it, and then so we have it for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So it just stays here. It's ready to go. That way, you know, just something like a fun activity, nothing too structured, because, you know, you want everybody to just chat freely and things. But when I'm in the kitchen, I don't get to hear most of that conversation. So just kind of fun way to incorporate something. And I'm sure there's other things out there. People, drop it in the comments if you have like a fun tradition or a game or something that you've bought or whatever that works well for, you know, people being kind of spread out in the house. But yeah, so that I will try to link to that if it's still available. But you can also find free printables. A lot of people make them. That's what started it all anyway. If I can find those, I will try to link those as well. But yeah, so remember, second bonus tip, my husband, I think it was last year also, I'm the kind of person who hates things hanging over my head. And so we got done eating and I was going to try and do all the dishes. And he just said, where are they going to go? Like, the dishes aren't going to go anywhere, but your family's going to leave. And so I was like, okay. So I added water to a couple things, you know, just so they didn't get like hard to clean, and let them soak. And I just left it. I left the dishes until later. And you know what? It did not matter. It didn't hurt anything. And I got to go in and have fun and talk to my family more. And then, you know what? Later on, after I had a chance to rest, I did the dishes with some music and had a good time. And it was just a much better way to do it. So that's a bonus tip from my husband indirectly, that yes, you want to do dishes. You don't want to leave them all week and whatever, you know, weekend and whatever. But sometimes things can wait, you know, so that you can spend time doing what matters most. So, all right. Good luck with your Thanksgiving. I hope these help. Please let me know how it goes. If you have any tips or anything cool that you discover this Thanksgiving as you're hosting, planning, or even just taking something, or maybe even just going, you know. And all right, happy holidays. Enjoy time with whoever you're with, even if it's yourself. Try to find more joy and simplify. Yeah, I'm talking to you. The one who thinks that you already did simplify, you can simplify more. I know, because that's still me. Thanks for watching my tip video, and make sure you like and subscribe and all those things, you know, so that you can join me again on other planning, cleaning, cooking, you know, all the things videos. I really want to make sure you're there. I want to have us help each other and make life more smooth and joyful. So I'm glad you could stick around till the end, or maybe you skipped ahead. I'm totally guilty of that too. That's fine. But thanks for being here, and we'll see you on our next video. Bye. Happy holidays.